Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, can you spot them? This species is a master of camouflage. And
now, the first bat you're going to see common in this area called an evening bat.
we're getting up close to the only flying mammal. And
Gotta get ready.
oh no, no,
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Tracy,
Woo!
you touch. I'm not going to touch.
Amazing.
They all sting.
gonna
Dr.
do
Tracy
that.
is on the case again. This time she's finding out if all stingrays really sting. This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. It's not folklore. Sea dragons are real, but they aren't as big or as scary as you might imagine. These dragons are actually marine fish. Eric, it's so good to be back with you here.
Oh, welcome. Yeah, it's always great to talk to you, Marsha.
And you know, the sea is such a mystifying, magical place, and especially dragons.
Oh, there be dragons, that's for sure. Sea dragons.
But it's hard to find them. These are very unusual, aren't they?
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important about the leafy sea dragons. They have excellent naturally developed camouflage, and that does protect them in the wild among the leafy green and brown algae that you'll see in their natural environment of southern Australia. That helps them duck out and hide.
Now, they've been doing this for a little bit of a time, haven't they?
Yeah.
This camouflage
You don't
routine?
just show up with this outfit. They've definitely evolved into this very adaptive camouflage. And again, it makes sense when you see their environment. We've got some artificial algae in here that sort of represent that southern Australia kind of rocky coastline where, again, there's an abundance of algae and plant matter. And because they're not very fast and they need to slowly hunt off the bottom and look for tiny shrimp all day long, they need to do that incognito. And this is what protects them.
Now, they look to me, Eric, with the snout
Yes.
like a seahorse. Are they
You're
part
right.
of that family?
Yeah, right on the nose,
Yeah.
or I should say on the snout. They are. They're sygnathids, so they are related to seahorses or pipefish that you might even find around here in Tampa Bay. And even on the other side of the world, you'll find similar animals. They have that long, slender snout. And another thing that they lack is a big stomach. So they eat all day. We feed them tiny mice and shrimp that they slurp up through that little straw-shaped mouth.
Now, we learned that the seahorses, it's the daddy that,
That's right.
that
Daddy
carries the
daycare.
babies.
Not just daycare, but the whole gestation.
The whole
It's
Group.
just that. Mom hands over the eggs after a little bit of a courtship dance that they do together. He has to win her attention, and then she'll bring the eggs over to him. He attaches them to a sticky patch area underneath. In a seahorse, they go right in the pouch. But in both cases, Dad takes care of those fertilized eggs until they're ready to hatch, and then squirts out all the little young that look just like him but tiny.
What is life expectancy for these beautiful creatures?
What we're learning about them in the care of people in aquariums is that we can see 4, 5, 6, maybe even more years. We're also still better understanding their wild existence, as we do find that often animals in our care will live even a little longer, because you might have noticed we're giving them some special wellness care every day.
Yes, and there's a unique orange U-shape apparatus on them.
Right.
What is that?
Well, this is one time when it's okay to be wrapped in plastic, because what we've developed there is a very special buoyancy compensating device. Think of it, if you're a scuba diver, you wear a special vest and you add air to it or you remove air from it to keep you just right in the water. You're neither floating or sinking. We noticed when these sea dragons were very young, and we first acquired them from little ones that had been hatched in an aquarium in Australia and then brought over to our aquarium, they were growing, but their position wasn't quite right. It'd be like if I was having a hard time keeping my head up, or maybe I had to crawl. I couldn't lift myself up. They were spending a little more time on the bottom than we would expect, and we realized that their inner swim bladder, their natural buoyancy device, wasn't growing and developing. So they weren't able to add gas to that little bladder inside, that little bubble that would hold them just right. So we created special buoyancy compensating devices just right for them and changed them as they grew throughout the several months it took them to get up to near adult size as they are now.
Now, a lot of our viewers have very exquisite aquariums.
Oh, wonderful, yes.
You know?
That's how I
And
got
they
started.
always ask us, is this something we could have in our aquarium? So I pass the question to you.
Sure, and they're very appealing. But I will tell you, the best place to see the leafy sea dragons, if you can't make a trip to southern Australia, is in aquariums like the Florida Aquarium. They take a lot of expertise. This is definitely not, as someone who was, a burgeoning marine biologist as a young boy, I started with guppies. I worked my way through a lot of freshwater fish and even marine fish, junior high and high school. This is definitely beyond the expertise of a home hobbyist, and they're simply not available either. So it's really important to understand that there are a lot of wonderful fish that you can learn with and you can have in your home to help you celebrate our blue oceans and keep that plastic out of the oceans to protect them in the wild and in your home as well, just as we do here at the Florida Aquarium.
You certainly have shown me a marvelous creature.
I'm so glad to share them with you. They are beauties.
Isn't that amazing? Creating a device to control a leafy sea dragon's buoyancy. This just proves how sometimes it takes a little ingenuity and inventiveness to better the lives of an animal, no matter its size. And don't let the size of our next animal fool you. While most bats found here in North America are so small they can fit in the palm of your hand, they do possess some big appetites.
Now, the first bat you're going to see common in this area called an evening bat. Now let me explain that these guys are education bats. They're used for education. They're used to being handled. They are vaccinated. And they're really very good-natured little characters. Okay? Bats live in big colonies. Sometimes 50 bats, sometimes thousands of bats. Bats are the underdogs of the animal world. People are afraid of them for no reason whatsoever. They have a nasty reputation, again, for no reason. And I try to dispel some of the myths that surround them. All bats are filthy and have rabies. No, not true at all. Okay, bats are immaculate animals, groom themselves exactly the way cats do. And so far as rabies, 1/4% of all the billions of bats in the world might have rabies. So that's much proof. It's a very minuscule amount. Bats are mammals, okay? And kids, they're just like cats and dogs, okay? And mammals have either hair or fur, and they're found everywhere on this planet except the South Pole. Now, in the United States, our bats tend to eat insects. Tons and tons and tons of insects. Each little bat can eat up to 3,000 insects in one night. They're kind of like an insect-eating machine. Okay, some bats, a few of them in the United States, are pollinators. They help our plants, or some of our plants, reproduce. Okay, now the next bat we have is called a free-tailed bat because he has a long, skinny tail. Scientists have clocked this particular species at 100 miles an hour. This is Miracle. She has a broken wing, so she can't be released. She looks a little different than the evening bat, a little bigger, a little more velvety. They hang upside down. because they're able to make a fast getaway. Now, bats really have very few defenses. They're gentle animals. They can bite, but not real hard. Bats are not blind. They see quite well, okay? And of course they have echolocation. That helps them. This is a bat detector. In order to hear a bat echolocate, you have to have a bat detector of some sort. This is a little one. Usually they're larger and they're hooked up to computers. Okay. It's the only way we can hear a bat echolocate. And maybe she will.
The best time to see bats is around dusk. That's when most bats start hunting. While it might be tough to see them when it's dark outside, their erratic flying pattern is a giveaway. They will zigzag throughout the sky, chasing insects, because let's face it, insects never really fly in a straight line. Next up, well, it's a marine animal that looks similar to a bat. Inspector Planet is finding out how rays can protect themselves. And for some, it might not be what you expect. Dante's Den Foundation is continuing the love. Join us Saturday, February 9th from 9 to noon. Make your appointment now for a wellness visit, which includes an exam and general vaccinations, all for one low price. We're also offering tours of Dante's Den and doggy baths for your furry friend. You can even smooch a pooch with our lovable Newfie Benson. Call 941-219-3730 for more information. Help us continue the love.
Over 90% of the seafood that is coming into this country is raised in areas of the world that don't have the highest standards. And so our approaches are aimed for two things. One is to help feed the world. The second is to do it in an environmentally friendly and sustainable way.
Science is everywhere, and it's all around us. It's observing the world, forming questions, and the willingness to find the answers. It's something our Inspector Planet does every day, and you can too.
Hi, my name is Dr. Tracy Finara. I'm an environmental engineer, which means that I use different scientific disciplines to protect the environment, humans, and wildlife. At Moat Marine Laboratory, I use investigation and myth-busting to answer questions. Almost. There's more coming. You gotta get ready.
Oh, no, Dr. Tracy.
Look,
you touch. I'm not going to touch.
amazing.
They all sting. I'm not going to do that.
Actually, I'm not so sure about that. You should see. Do all rays sting? Rays date back 150 to 200 million years. It's hard to find fossils of rays because, well, they're mostly cartilage. In fact, their closest evolutionary cousin is the shark. And if you look at them, they almost kind of look like shark. They're in the same class, but they're in their own group called the batoids. And if you look at a lot of rays, they kind of do look like a bat. With rays, they actually have something called spiracles on top of their head where they can intake water there, and then that water goes out through their gills where they get their oxygen. The one big difference between sharks and rays is their defense mechanism. Sharks have sharp teeth and they can swim through the water really fast for their prey. Rays have different defense mechanisms. Some of them have barbs that can actually sting. One species of ray can actually electrocute its prey. All right, so we're here where the public is able to touch these stingrays.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They feel amazing, and no one has to worry about touching stingrays. Sting might be in the name, but it's definitely not a worry. We actually are able to use positive reinforcement to train our stingrays to participate in their own healthcare will actually come swim over to a target, and we're able to trim that barb up, and it's really, really quick and it doesn't hurt them. It grows back just like your fingernails do.
So the question is, do all rays have barbs? Can they all sting?
So something like a manta ray doesn't have a barb, so it would be that not all rays are going to sting.
This is a model of the spotted eagle ray, and it's a great example of the difference between this tail and the barbs. And we can see here that the spotted eagle ray has a bunch of barbs, something that you probably don't want to get too close to. So this is a model of a manta ray. See that really long tail? A lot of people would assume that the manta ray can sting, but in fact those tails are just that, they're tails. The barbs, well, there's no barbs here. This is what a typical barb looks like. It can go through a person's skin or even bone. Manta ray don't have that defense mechanism. Their defense mechanism is their enormous size and their ability to jump out of the water to escape predators.
Woo! Oh my goodness, I'm not scared anymore.
I know, now that we know that not all rays sting and these stingrays are okay to touch. Stingrays are not aggressive, so for the most part, they're pretty amazing, friendly species. Remember guys, anyone could be a scientist or an engineer with some passion, hard work, and curiosity of how the world works.
Rays are not considered dangerous animals, but getting stuck by a stingray barb can be common, usually when an unsuspecting beachgoer steps on the ray. Here in Florida, when you head down to the beach and get in the water, it's important to do the stingray shuffle, basically sliding your feet back and forth as you walk. This can help prevent getting stung. Does the size of an animal really matter? We're going to find out if it does to dogs next. Some pretty good-sized dogs, and I swear I think a couple of my big dogs think they're little lap dogs. We met up with trainer Paul to discuss a common theory. Can a big dog really get along with a smaller dog? Paul, today we have two of our favorite dogs. Of course, all of our dogs are favorite dogs. But the difference between these two is we've got Benson weighing in at 150 pounds, and we've got Luther weighing in about 45 to 50. And we get the question all the time, can a big dog cohabitate and play nicely with a small dog? Can they get along?
Absolutely. Dogs don't really see size difference. They think as you know, he thinks he's a 14-pound lap dog. He'll jump, tries to crawl into your lap. This one thinks he's the same size. So when they play, they don't really understand size. So you have to keep in mind that he's 180 some pounds versus 40 pounds. But for the most part, they understand. They play gentle. If they want to interact and play, that's what they'll do. They don't really understand their size difference. So if you get a little Chihuahua with Benson, that might be an issue. Just because, I mean, on a pure accident, Benson might step on him, you know, and hurt him at that point. But for dogs this size, they get along just fine.
Now, what is the best way to introduce these two dogs? I know you say size, they don't get it, but we do as humans. How do we do this?
If they don't know each other, slowly on a leash would be the best way. That you come into a neutral ground would be the best place to do it at, and just let him do what he's doing right now, just like this. They'll give you signs whether or not they don't want you to be around, but they'll let you know if there's going to be an issue, and you'll know right away whether or not they're standoffish or if there's going to be any kind of problems. Tail will go straight. They'll turn away, look away. They'll lift their lip up or snarl. But to introduce them just on leash, have two people, you know, preferably in case there is an issue, you can pull them apart. So just to ease it in, I guess, is the best way to do it.
And once they get eased in and you feel confident, then it's time to let them off the leash and let them be dogs.
Right, exactly.
Just let them play.
Yeah, let them play.
So when it comes to becoming best friends, size does not matter. It's all about temperament and how well your dog plays with another dog. Stay with us. There's more Animal Outtakes coming up next. Animal Outtakes is produced by Dante's Den Foundation, a nonprofit group dedicated to creating the best life for dogs. If you would like to learn more about Dante's Den, donate, or volunteer, visit our website, dantesden.org. Dr. Glassman, we briefly spoke about declawing in another segment, and we've had a lot of requests to continue that controversy. What really is going on with the declawing? Is it in their benefit or our benefit?
Well, it's certainly not in the cat's benefit. It's a surgical procedure, which is an amputation of the little bone at the end of each toe. We all have 3 bones, and the last bone is where the big nail grows from, so you actually have to amputate the bone to get the nail to never regrow. And it's a surgical procedure. It's actually an amputation on every little toe, so there's certainly pain involved. If it's not done by a skilled surgeon, there can be post-op infections. Nails can regrow. If they're not done properly, they don't remove the whole bone. So it's certainly not for the pet's interest. It's for our interest, certainly. And people don't want their house shredded and their furniture shredded, and I understand that. I have cats myself. But sometimes there are medical reasons for people, like a lot of cancer is one of the, of course, very common, one of the most horrible things for people. So a lot of people on chemotherapy, and they can't be getting scratched and getting infected.
Sure.
Old people, thin skin, they get infections easily. So, front-only declaw is okay in my book. I try to never do the hind claws. There's no real good reason to do that. There's some people think they avoid the litter box because, of course, while they're healing after surgery, they still have to use the litter. And if they have some pain associated with the feet in the litter box, they may forever associate pain with the litter box. So some people think they have, urination, defecation issues around the house post-op a declaw. I always recommend if you get a kitten and you're thinking of do it when they're a young kitten, 3-4 months of age, because when they're so little, it's obviously a smaller incision in each toe, and they only weigh a few pounds, and they don't weigh 15 or 20 pounds if they're a fat 5-year-old cat. So always, I would recommend a client to only do the fronts with kittens, and if it's done by properly by a skilled surgeon with good pain medicine, it's not that terrible. My own wife, literally about 20 years ago, I had 2, 3, 4-month-old brothers. I neutered them and declawed them, brought them home, and they were running around, and my wife actually said to me, "Did you declaw them?" I said, "Yes." So if it's done properly by a skilled surgeon with good pain medicine, it's not that terrible. I would never do all 4 at once, and I try not to do the rears anyway.
And I know your wife, as she was leading you to the doghouse. Yeah.
But what else can we do? There are nail caps. There are things you can glue onto the nails. Has to be done frequently, every 3 to 4 weeks in general. You have to get taught to do that. You can trim the nails, and you buy these little soft paws, they're called, and you trim the nail, and you put the cap on glue on, but that's a continuous process all the time. You can try to deter them from scratching furniture by putting scratching posts near the furniture, of course, maybe catnip on it. You can try to deter them from the furniture by putting double stick tape. There's even one made for that, because they don't like to feel the stickiness. The rubber mat runners, those little door runners, if you turn them upside down, they have those little nubby things on the bottom.
Yes.
If you turn them upside down around your furniture, they don't like to walk on that. So there's lots of things you can do to try to deter them, but it's certainly an instinct, and they're going to want to claw. And trimming the nails on an every 10-day, 2-week basis is great if you can do it with your cat. But if you don't get a kitten to train young, it's not so easy to do. You adopt a cat from a shelter that's an adult, never had its feet worked with. It could take 3-4 people to hold it down, and everybody gets shredded in the process.
And it's no different than when you do dogs, because if you don't
Right.
start when they're puppies,
Right.
you're going to have a problem. Now, Raja is the only cat. She is the queen of Dante's Den, because as you know, we only have dogs here. And she's about 5 years old, so she has her claws. You would not recommend this
Yeah,
for
in general, I
Raja.
don't recommend declawing cats unless, people give me a good reason. And I say, okay, if it's a toss-up between euthanizing an old pet that somebody can't live with because they are on chemotherapy or whatever, to me, there's no comparison. Euthanasia, or turning it into a shelter, or making it an outside cat where it can get lost or hit by a car. To me, declaw the front and keep it as an indoor cat. So we get pushed into those situations, but I certainly don't recommend it because it's not for the cat, it's for us.
And Raja is safe right here at Dante's Den, claws and all. We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. We'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some wild adventures. Until then, thanks for watching.
No, not all rays can sting.
All right, so all stingrays are rays, but not all rays are stingrays. And not all rays, not all... Oh, it's so confusing.